Hey, it's Danny Pellegrino from Everything Iconic. Ready to upgrade your style game without blowing your budget? Check out Quince. They've got all the good stuff, shirts and polos, activewear, and fine leather goods, all at 50 to 80% less than other high-end brands. And the best part? They're all about safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing. Get that luxury vibe without the luxury price tag. Hit up quince.com/upgrade for free shipping and 365-day returns on your next order. That's quince.com/upgrade.
7 things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Ciara Revin, and this is the Sunday 7.
On today's episode of the award-winning Smart 7, we celebrate Shark Week, catch up on the new streaming service that's just landed, hear about the risk of extreme storms this hurricane season, and meet a remarkable bionic innovator. As usual, if you're enjoying this episode, please do hit like and follow. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7. Before we launch into today's episode, it was on this day in 1965 that the first successful surgery to replant a completely amputated thumb took place in Japan. 2 surgeons, Shiigo Komatsu and Susumi Tamai, used a surgical microscope to carry out the operation on a 28-year-old male patient. The operation was a success and the surgical team went on to replace 331 digits over the course of their careers. I guess that deserves a big thumbs up. It's possible that you've been so busy tracking election polls this week that you may have missed the fact that today marks the start of Discovery Channel's Shark Week, hosted by actor, wrestler and part-time marine biologist John Cena.
I've been waiting for this all year.
We're always hosted by John Cena. Shark Week starts Sunday, July 7th on Discovery.
Now this is a holiday.
And stream on Max.
It's an annual event now, which sees a whole week of programming on the ocean's most feared predators. And this year's offering has a number of intriguing innovations that could have real-life impact. Dr. Craig O'Connell is a shark biologist and conservationist, and he's been working on some technological solutions that could help prevent shark attacks while also avoiding harm to sharks. Traditionally, nets spread across the entrance to bays has been the only way to prevent sharks coming near shore and putting tourists and water sports enthusiasts at risk. But Dr. O'Connell has been innovating with new means to repel the huge fish.
It's a large visual barrier that extends from shoreline to shoreline, from seafloor to sea surface, and inside that barrier are a series of electromagnets and permanent magnets as a way to selectively repel sharks. It's a non-invasive, eco-friendly technology that does not kill sharks. As it activates, it emits an electric field. So that's our third line of defense. Fins will go down, their entire body will shudder, they'll turn away, and it's a deterrent.
He's currently due to test the system on a full beach in Cape Cod in October. Just down the coast, New Smyrna Beach, Florida has the distinction of being the shark bite capital of the world, with 8 attacks in 2023 and an attack as recently as this week. But the surfers keep coming, and AJ Miller, who's a logistics captain with the Florida Lifeguards, says the sharks are not really intending any harm and points out that while there are bites, there have been no fatalities.
It's kind of like asking if a bear's in the water, is there a shark in the water? And we put our lifeguards in here every morning. I don't think there should be really cause for fear to keep people out of the water down here. It's a great environment here. We've got great estuaries and nursery inside the inlet. Those fish, they come out of the inlet, they wrap around here, get pushed towards the shore. Sharks follow them feeding. Most of them are juvenile sharks, 3 to 4 feet. We're not what they want.
NASA is getting in on the shark action too, not launching them into space, but using their climate satellites to track shark movement and climate patterns. Ivona Cetinic is a NASA oceanographer, and she explains what technology NASA can bring to the study of sharks.
NASA cannot see sharks from space. However, being up in the air has its own advantages, so looking at Earth from this vantage point of space allows us to see the environment the sharks are living in. Our Earth satellites can see ocean currents, surface salinity, surface temperature, and also low phytoplankton that feeds the oceanic environment. So we compare that information with sharks' movement and behavior to understand how they're responding to changes in its environment.
Even in an election week, tech news never sleeps, so it's time to catch up with our favourite insomniac, the Smart 7's tech guru, Will Guyatt. This week saw another new streaming service launch. Do we really need another one? What's the story with Tubi, Will?
Tubi is a new free streaming service from the media giant Rupert Murdoch. He's the bloke best known for The Sun and for launching Sky TV here. And in the US, he has the broadcaster Fox. Now, this platform's been very successful in the US. It's got over 20,000 movies and TV shows, and they're all free to stream. So it's been attracting around 80 million people every month. In the UK, they promise it's going to have Hollywood movies, modern British classics, and they say it's even going to have Bollywood films and art house cinema too. So it sounds like it's going to offer a bit of everything.
So what makes it different from Netflix or the BBC Player? At least it can't be as bad as ITVX, right?
You don't have to pay a subscription like you do for Netflix or pay for your TV licence for iPlayer. And having been around in some other countries for quite a while, they've got their app and web experience pretty well organised, unlike some of the other recent entrants to the market. Bizarrely, it's pretty much like watching TV in the old days before we all started streaming. You've got to put up with adverts. They happen before the movie or show starts, and they also happen while you're watching it. And unlike some of these other free services, the Tubi library is actually pretty good. There's content from Disney, Lionsgate, NBC and Sony. So this just means it isn't full of low budget tat which features stars of the 1990s or special effects created on an old Amiga computer.
How do we find it?
You can get the app for smartphones. It's available for both Apple and Google devices, or you can also get it for Amazon Fire too. And if you're on your computer, just go to tubitv.com and get ready for those tasty ads.
We're in the final stages of the Euros and we have the Olympics on the way, but there's another big sporting event out there that started this week. What's the story with the Esports World Cup?
Well, this is definitely going to send many sports fans over the edge. Those playing video games are now definitely considered athletes, and around 1,500 of the very best players across a list of 21 games like Apex Legends, Call of Duty, Fortnite, League of Legends and Rocket League will be heading to Saudi Arabia over the next 8 weeks to compete against the best in the world.
There's serious money up for grabs, right?
Definitely. We're not talking a book voucher or 50 quid here. There's a prize pool of £47 million across the tournaments for the 21 games. This is definitely the biggest amount of money ever put into a tournament like this. Now, some are concerned that this money's come straight from Saudi Arabia, who've been splashing around the oil billions in other areas of sport and entertainment in the hope that they can clean up their image. And there's also been some big figures like some top gamers and commentators who've refused to take part of this on the basis of the country's record with the LGBT community.
There's a new app causing a bit of a storm in San Francisco. What's going on with the Tonight app? The blurb says it gives you nightlife in your pocket, which sounds a little bit odd.
Have you ever wondered if it's worth heading out to your local bar on karaoke night? Well, if you're in San Francisco, you're now in luck, because Tonight has put webcams into loads of Bay Area night spots to let you see what's happening. You can check the app before you put your best chinos on and head out into town. The creators of the app say it's the ultimate all-in-one place for managing, promoting and discovering nightlife, and alongside being able to snoop on boozers at a wealth of bars, you can also buy tickets for events in venues, although the reality is they don't actually have many deals in place with venues yet to offer that.
It sounds like a lot of privacy violations. How did it get approved?
You are absolutely right. This is a nightmare for those who want a night out and don't fancy being tracked by family, friends or even complete strangers. For many, this veers into Big Brother territory. The creators of the app absolutely deny it's a privacy nightmare. They say it's intended to offer a glimpse of live shows at venues, and that they're now offering to blur people in this app to anonymise what's going on and stop individual partygoers from being identified. I'm off to San Fran in a few weeks, so maybe I might go out to a bar in an actual chicken suit just to see what happens.
And finally, Japan's tech minister had another big win this week in his war on old tech. What has Minister Taro Kono gotten rid of now?
Well, it's been a 3-year mission, but Japan has finally said goodbye to the floppy disk. Some of you might not even remember the 3.5 inches of not at all actually floppy disk, but it's taken Japan decades to successfully remove these from government offices, despite most of our computers and systems not using them since the year 2000. The 80s tech was so ingrained, there were over 1,000 laws and regulations that had to be rewritten in Japan to remove these devices. This tech purge came about as the Japanese government realised it had an addiction to a range of prehistoric tech during the COVID-19 lockdowns, and it committed to ridding itself of this in a country which is previously and normally known for being such a high-tech country. Before they made these special efforts to remove the floppy disk, apparently it was still being used in 19 Japanese government departments. The next item on his hit list is the fax machine, so watch out, the tech minister's coming for you.
Still to come in the Sunday 7, Hurricane Beryl sounds alarms in the Caribbean, and we find out why Germans are so good at recycling. Hurricane season has started with a bang this year as Hurricane Beryl made her presence known this week in the Caribbean. Beryl set records as the most severe storm this early in the season with 165 mile per hour winds, leaving at least 11 dead and 95% of homes on Union Island and Grenada damaged. Kristofer Rozoff is from the US National Centre for Atmospheric Research, and he says the fact that Beryl didn't cause more damage is very fortunate.
It had a very intense shift in intensity from a Category 1 to Category 4 storm in less than 24 hours, making it one of the most impressive rapid intensification cases in Atlantic history. And we honestly have not seen any recorded storms perform such an intensification rate prior to September 1st in the history books.
Beryl headed to Mexico next as a Category 3 storm and could pick up speed again as it heads towards Texas on Sunday. Executive Secretary on Climate Change for the United Nations is Simon Steill. He's originally from Grenada, and he told CNN that there's no doubt that the increase in intensity is what is driven by climate change.
With hurricanes in particular, we're seeing increased temperature year after year, global temperatures rising off the scales. That in ocean states causes the oceans to themselves warm, and the evaporation intensifies both the strength of storms but also the frequency of storms, again, year in, year out. This year, the Atlantic hurricane season is predicted to again hit unprecedented levels, the most active yet. But it is a direct consequence of global heating that is fueling these intense hurricanes.
For the last 20 years, Germany has been seen as a leader in recycling, partly because of strong government policies and also a high level of enthusiasm from the German public. But maybe it's time to shift from recycling to repairing and extending the life of electronic equipment in particular, as the average German throws away or recycles 12 kilograms of electronic waste every year. In Berlin, a new repair cafe has opened, which shows people how to make basic repairs on electronic items and extend their lifespan. Georg is the owner of Berlin's repair cafe.
Anything electronic that breaks is usually thrown away. Not everything ends up in the recycling centers. A lot ends up in the forest somewhere. That means we have one problem, which is environmental damage, and we have another problem, things that are actually still repairable or instead thrown away.
Still to come in the Sunday 7, a breakthrough in bionic technology and Australia's attempt at a real-life Jurassic Park.
Right after this.
The living room is where you make life's most beautiful memories. But your sofa shouldn't be the one remembering them. The new life-resistant, high-performance furniture collection from Ashley is designed to withstand all the spills, slip-ups, and muddy paws that come with the best parts of life. Ashley high-performance sofas and recliners are soft, on-trend, and easy to clean. Shop the high-performance furniture in-store or online at ashley.com. Ashley, for the love of home.
Welcome back.
One of the new weapons in the medical arsenal when it comes to tackling cancer is whole genome sequencing, or WGS. The NHS is using the technology to test the entire DNA code of any cancerous tumours, which provides valuable clues to help identify cancer-causing mutations. This allows for quicker and more effective selection of drugs for treatment, and it also allows quick diagnosis of why the cancer occurred and whether other family members of the patient might also be at risk. Professor Sam Bejadi from the Wellcome Sanger Institute at Cambridge University is one of those who has adopted the WGS test, particularly when it comes to cases of childhood cancer cases. He's reviewed almost 300 cases, and he says in at least a third of the cases, the genome sequencing improved the treatment for the patient and their family. Angus Hodder is a genome expert, and he told Sky News that this test will change the way childhood cancer is tackled.
As well as looking at the cancer genome, we also look at the genome that the children have when they were born. And that means we can think, is it more likely that they were going to have cancer when they were born through their genetic code? And therefore, for that child and also their family, do we need to monitor that child and that family so we can better intervene or treat them if we need to? So as well as giving that cancer information, it also gives that information about the genome that the child inherited from their family and may also be shared with other family members.
There's some serious innovating going on at the intersection between the brain and technology. Elon Musk has been getting headlines for the chip implants that have begun with his Neuralink company, but he's not the only one innovating in this space. A new study which has seen a brain-controlled bionic leg trialled with patients has shown significant improvement in walking speed and stability. The device is controlled by the brain and gets 41% increase in speed over normal prosthetics, according to a study published in Nature. The man behind the study has an incredible story of his own. He is Professor Herr, co-director of the K. Lisa Yang Center for Bionics at MIT. He was one of the top US mountain climbers at age 16, but got stranded in a storm, and frostbite and hypothermia led to him having both legs amputated below the knee. He has 2 artificial limbs and says he's considering having the brain implant himself. Since his accident, he's been focused on innovation in artificial limbs, and he explained what drives him in the new documentary called The Superhuman Body.
After the accident, I designed my own artificial limbs to return to the vertical world of rock and ice climbing. And to my surprise and everyone's surprise, I climbed better with artificial limbs than I'd climbed before the accident with biological limbs. That completely inspired me about technology and human augmentation. My goal was to not only restore my own physicality, but the physicality of broadly people with all forms of limb pathology. At MIT, we advanced the fundamental science and technology to do total limb reconstruction. It spans many, many disciplines, from machine learning to robotics to sensing, genetics to tissue engineering.
Australian scientists are working on a project that seems impossible. They're hoping to de-extinct the Tasmanian tiger. It sounds like a real-life Jurassic Park, but research company Colossal Biosciences are working with Bonarong Wildlife Sanctuary in Tasmania to bring back the thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger. Professor Andrew Pask of Melbourne University says it's a pretty complicated process.
We can't magically bring the Tasmanian tiger back. We have to start with a living cell and then engineer our thylacine back into existence. So the way you do that is you find the closest living relative to your animal that has gone extinct, and for us that is a small marsupial species called the fat-tailed dunnart. We examine all of its DNA, we compare that to the DNA of your extinct species, the Tasmanian tiger, and we look at everywhere that those 2 genomes, or those 2 piles of DNA, if you like, are different. And once you've identified those differences, it's just a matter of then going in and making all of those edits to turn your fat-tailed dunnart genome or cell into a thylacine cell.
The last thylacine died in a Melbourne zoo in 1930, so it will be a pretty dramatic piece of genetic engineering if they can bring the species back. Professor Kristofer Helgen is a research zoologist at the Smithsonian Institute, and he thinks it may just be too complicated to work in practice.
The idea that you could actually tweak the DNA of this mouth-sized animal into making this apex predator of Australia, it stretches imagination in many different ways. This is an impossible project.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
When everyone's on the same page, getting things done at work is easy. Make a bigger impact at work with Grammarly. Grammarly is your secure AI writing partner that allows your team to make their point and move faster. You can even save time by going from spending hours editing drafts to just seconds. Join the 96% of Grammarly users that say it helps them craft more impactful writing. Sign up and download Grammarly for free at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's Grammarly.com/podcast. Easier said, done.